Welcome back, Idiot Squared viewers. Today we are going to cover trust. What does it even mean? How do you cultivate it? How do you take advantage of it? How do you make sure it doesn't get blown up in your face? And we're also going to answer a question from our most loyal viewer and long-time supporter of the pod, Learn to Grow. So Learn to Grow asked the following question. Internet culture, the oversharing, the reels, the abuse of social media, and the things we can't unsee. Thoughts on that? We can see everyone's daily lives daily, and how does it affect you two men? Does it affect your eating, your experience, your gym? Has it changed your mind or the way you live in the new world? Good question. Very good question. Polska, would you like to have a stab at that?
Yeah, sure. I actually love this question and I love this topic. I feel like we could say we're passionate about any topic, but I do really like this topic about the internet culture. And I think Learn to Grow has asked a few things here, right? There's a few parts to this question. So I was looking at the oversharing of reels. Sorry, the oversharing, the reels, the abuse of social media, and the things we can't unsee. So I feel like there's like two things there, right? What I think Learn to Grow is trying to ask, and Learn to Grow, you can, comment if I'm right or wrong. But the way I'm taking this question is that Learn to Grow wants to understand what effect is oversharing our lives really do to the culture of things. Can people really expose themselves too much? Can they overshare? Are they posting things that they shouldn't be posting? I think that's sort of like the first part. And I think the second part of that sentence is social media showing us things that is causing us some sort of hurt or causing or sort of doing something negative to our minds with the types of things that the algorithm is pushing. So it may not be so much of people oversharing, but it may be things that the algorithm sees as, for example, like on TikTok, if we were to analyze TikTok, we would see that there are incredibly obscure things that become really, really popular, right? So I think that's what he's sort of getting at, is how social media platforms will push certain ideologies, certain ideas onto us. So there's kind of like two parts there. So I thought we could talk about the first part first.
Fucking genius.
I actually
fucking genius, guy. Let's go.
So I actually never really had any social media platforms at all. The only one I've ever delved into is YouTube. And, obviously we're doing a podcast, which you can find on YouTube. And also, what's the other one? Where else do we have this, Rubes? Rumble. Shout out to Rumble.
Did you post on Rumble too?
Well, this podcast automatically gets uploaded to Rumble.
Oh, nice.
Right? Because we have it synced.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can find us on
I'm going to go
Rumble
look at us
well.
on Rumble. I've never seen us on Rumble.
We actually still need to upload the Idiot Squared logo onto Rumble. I've been meaning to ask you for the logo so I could upload it, but I haven't got around to it.
All right, we digress. Let's get into this question. Let's get it.
So I never had MySpace, right? Like for me, I had ICQ. Like shout out to ICQ. Do you remember that platform? All right. It was right before MSN Messenger.
Oh, okay.
Right before MSN Messenger, there was this popular platform called ICQ. And for anyone who remembers ICQ, you will for sure remember that sound that it made when you got a message. It was like, so, something like that. Anyways, so I had MSN Messenger, but after that, I never got MySpace. I never got Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Like I never got into any of those things. So I actually didn't have much exposure to any sort of social media platforms. I don't even know if I would classify YouTube as a social media platform per se, although there are elements to it that's sort of social media-ish.
Social
but
and
it's
media.
kind of like well, you know what I mean?
I
Like
know what you
Facebook is
mean.
like, well, I guess, yeah, it is in a way, but I feel like MySpace, Facebook, those are sort of quite similar. In Instagram, they're kind of quite similar. It's like it's all about me, me, me. Even though you could have a YouTube channel, it's all about me, me, me as well. I don't know, for some reason, maybe just because I'm biased because I'm on YouTube, I see it differently. But I kind of see YouTube in a slightly different type of category. So that being said, I understand how Facebook works and Instagram, and I've seen people on it. Sometimes I'll get videos shared or shit shared from either platform. So I've been exposed to it, but like I said, I don't have a lot of experience on those platforms. But I do have an understanding that people do overshare, and I think society used to feel shameful in certain things that we did. And this shamefulness culture that we used to have would prevent us from doing certain things out in public. And social media sort of opened up this portal into making us less and less shameful because you see, X person posting this and then another person posts, and it just sort of kind of like the Moloch, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like a competition to the bottom. So because of that, sort of this culture of shamefulness that we used to have, that we used to try and present ourselves in this certain way, has kind of gone away, and we are left with no shame. Not everybody, but a lot of the internet culture is left with pretty much no shame whatsoever. And I think that people are definitely oversharing, and I'm not really sure what to what extent is healthy versus unhealthy. But personally, I will say, if you are exposing your family, exposing your relationship, that might not be such a good idea. I've even heard about people having personal arguments on a Facebook post, right? And they're basically having like this family argument or discussion for everyone to see. I think that's definitely crossing the line. And my concern is that how is this affecting people emotionally? If everything is just exposed on the internet for everybody to see, because I haven't had that experience, but I'm curious how one would feel, because sometimes people might reach out if they have an issue and they're hoping for someone to sort of write them a comment or give them a heart, or they're sort of relying on this platform to maybe try and make them feel better about their day if they're not having a great day. But then you become sort of reliant on that platform to give you a sense of community, to give you this sort of false sense of happiness, I suppose. So I think that's also dangerous. Sorry, I'm saying a lot there. You can jump in if you want, because
Well, okay. So I think Learn to Grow is actually asking you specifically, or us specifically, how it's affected us. How has this affected your day? So if maybe you want to jump in, or I can jump in and do a little bit for me if you want. I think that the oversharing, the reels, the abuse of social media, things we can't unsee, thoughts on that we can see everyone's daily lives like every day, and how does it affect me? Does it affect my eating, my experience, my gym? Has it changed my mind or the way I live in the new world? It definitely has. It has changed it, because it has opened me up to a world far greater than the world I previously had. I wasn't able to see these things before we became so interconnected with these social media networks. And so it has had an effect. Has it been good or bad? There initially, I think it was very positive, and then I think it went into what you would might classify as like a bad thing, where I initially thought it was interesting to see and share with other people online. And then I sort of fell into the trap of comparing myself to others, and I went, going down that whole path of like, oh, this person's so much better at this, or they're so good at that, or I want to be doing this, or I want to be doing that kind of thing, because I'm seeing other people doing this. I'm seeing other people's highlight reel. And then I started to sort of, compare my life and wanted to make my life more of a highlight reel, or have more highlights to share. But I don't think it is intrinsically a bad thing either, because that was a beautiful part of the journey that I had to go on, to learn that it's actually not about like what others are doing, or comparing myself to that, or feeling like I've been left out because I'm not doing those adventures or anything else. It was actually more about, well, if that's what I want from my life, I should construct a life where that is my reality. If that's what I want to be doing, I should go and do that. And so in doing that, I explored lots of different things and realized that, some things look good from far, but are far from good. And I was able to better calibrate and align myself with the life that I really wanted. So for me now, it's most certainly additive, but it's mainly because I've decided to shut off or not participate or not observe certain parts of it. Like my algorithms for any of the social medias, specifically YouTube, are going to be super different to most other people's. Like I'm not on social media, like you mentioned, about, people writing things so that they can get people to comment to make them feel better, or to sympathy or anything else. Like I largely, I do that intrinsically. That's what that initial journey taught me, was that I need to do this within myself. It needs to be an intrinsic thing. And then, so I now utilize these social media platforms to learn and explore. My YouTube algorithm is going to mainly be like Wolfram Physics Project, graph rewriting, ZX diagrams, category theory, quantum mechanics related stuff, philosophy, John Vervaeke, and like all these people, Lex Friedman podcasts, et cetera, like that's the kind of stuff I love to consume. So I've been able to curate an information source, or a pipeline of information that I can, absorb or assimilate on a regular basis. So for me, it's very additive. I love it. I'm very thankful of that. But I also understand that there are, people in different circumstances at different points in their lives, at different places in evolution and rulal space, so to speak, and they're experiencing and passing the universe in a very different way. So I don't see a lot of the oversharing stuff, mainly because it's not stuff that I engage with. So the algorithm doesn't show it to me. But I'm sure that there is stuff out there. So how's it affected my eating? Okay, it has affected my eating in one way, for sure. So before, I probably wouldn't, I would eat and be fully present in my meal. And now, because there is just so much damn good information out there that I want to learn, and things I want to learn about, I find myself eating and watching something at the same time. Now, previously, that might have been a problem for me, but now it hasn't, because when I was younger, eating was this amazing sense of satisfaction and enjoyment that I used to get, right? Like I really loved food, and I still do love food. But after bodybuilding and force feeding myself for many years, and getting very large and having to eat just ridiculous amounts of food on a daily basis, like consistently eating large amounts of food, I'm not going to lie, but I kind of lost my passion for eating. Like it became a bit of a chore to some degree. Now, I wanted the outcomes, so I was like, okay, this is something you have to do to get these outcomes. But when I changed, and I don't want those outcomes anymore, I'm now thankful that I don't have to do it as much. So kind of watching something now is makes eating slightly more enjoyable, because I'm learning at the same time. I find myself I don't really want to eat that much, but I still have to eat a certain amount to maintain. So in that regard, yeah, it's funny. How's it changed my experience or how I live my life? It has, in all seriousness, I'm going to say this, it has enhanced my quality of life massively. It has expanded my horizons. It has expanded my mind. It's changed the way I experience things. It's connected, or it's been able to connect me or allow me to find and interact with other people who are significantly smarter than I am, have varied interests, but have domain knowledge that I don't have and I didn't have. And I'm able to learn from them. I'm able to interact with them. I'm able to ask them questions. I'm able to expand my own horizons and my possibility space just by interacting with these people. Now, I am aware that that might not be everybody's experience with social medias, but that's, for me, that's what I've chosen to utilize it for. So honestly, I would say that it's a net positive. But yeah, if you want to jump in and talk about how it's affected you personally, maybe we go from there.
Yeah, no, good call. That is sort of the question that Learn to Grow is posing for us. And great answer, Rubes. That's fucking sick. I love how you have essentially took the positives from social media and sort of utilized it in a way that is beneficial to you. And I really recommend that everyone sort of try and do that. Try and get away from using it in sort of I don't want to say like in bad ways, but not ideal ways. What's the language we use?
Useful.
That things aren't good or bad. Yeah. In more useful ways, right? Because here's the thing. This is the reason why I never got any social media, so I can't really speak to it as in depth how it affected me personally as you. I will attempt to do so, but when I first understood what was MySpace and what was Facebook, the idea of taking a picture of myself or posting pictures of myself onto the internet to show like essentially the world, I thought it was crazy. I thought it was, at the time, I was embarrassed to do so. I was literally embarrassed. I was like, people are like posting just pictures of themselves, and what the fuck's going on? Like, I thought it was really strange. You know what I mean? Like, if I was with my family, with my friends, I would say, oh, I went on this trip, you want to see some pictures, but to just like post it out there, I just thought it was crazy. And I think some of my friends sort of saw it the same way. I just couldn't bear to post a picture of myself. I just would feel so embarrassed.
I was the same.
Doing so.
I was the exact same initially.
Yeah.
I was like, why? Who would care? Like, what? And then, but then you try it, and then you realize, like, if you're intrinsically providing your own, like, sort of self-care and validation and your own self, like, you intrinsically define your own self-worth. It is a weird thing for you to post those pictures, right? And it's a weird thing. Like, if you're, unless I don't know, it's weird. It might be very self-centered in some sense, that you think other people might care. Like, I never thought anyone would care. So I was the same as you, but I have tried it because I was willing to be wrong about it. I was like, well, maybe there is something here. And I have tried doing those things, but largely I just don't care. Like, it doesn't, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, it has evolved so much from there. For example, Twitter. Twitter's cool because I also never had Twitter either, but I understand how it works. I feel kind of stupid talking about these platforms, and I've never actually used any of them. I just know about them. But Twitter's a cool place because you can go and have access to a lot of different information from many different people. And I feel like Twitter is less about look at me, and more about sharing information and giving your opinion and sort of having this big discussion about things. Although sometimes it's a little bit unhealthy when you have a whole bunch of people posting hostile things. But whereas Facebook or MySpace, it's sort of like look at me. It's all about me. Like, people used to post shit about where they're, like what they're eating, or I don't know if they still do, but
it's less and less now because people have been getting robbed. Like Kim Kardashian, remember she got robbed. Like, there's it's becoming dangerous to do this because people that can know where you are every day, like all the time, or know at specific times, can then take advantage of that. So, like, yeah, I think it's becoming less and less common.
Yeah. So I think it has affected me indirectly, right? Because I have seen sort of the world change around me immensely. Because I have a couple examples. I'll start with this one. It's kind of like it's a bit of a crude example, but it's true. Okay. Before, really good looking girls, right? They would be constantly hit on when they go out in public, right? Like if you're like a really good looking girl and you go to a grocery store, you would have guys hit on you trying to talk to you, right? And now those girls are now being bombarded more on social media, right? So this just creates like a space for a little ego to become really, really inflated, where people's egos, and this happens to guys as well. I don't mean to only single girls out, but I think the ego gets inflated, and then you start sort of taking that behavior out into the real world, and you suddenly feel this sense of importance. And like, it's obviously healthy to feel important, but I think that there's a limit to things, and I think we cross the limit. For example, when we are at the gym and we are on a machine, right? And we're on our phone on the machine, taking pictures of ourselves on the machine, not necessarily using the gym how you're supposed to be using it. And you're sort of just like in the way of people who are trying to sort of work out. And I've been seeing like this increase, and people just really don't have any shame whatsoever anymore. Like the positions I see girls and guys putting themselves into, and the clothes that they're wearing, and the amount of effort that they're putting in to try and get this perfect selfie is hilarious to me. And it does at times annoy me a little bit. I will be honest. So I feel like in that way, it has affected me personally in being at the gym, right? And because in my mind, there should be no cell phones on the gym floor. The gym floor is for working out.
Sacred
It'd be
space.
cool though if it would be cool though if gyms, like if big end gym or high end gyms, did have a sort of room for social media stars or whatever you want to call it, where they would be able to go in there and utilize that area for all the pictures and
like a gym set. It was just a set where they could take pictures.
Yeah, exactly. That would be dope for them. But
fake machines,
right?
Fake plates.
Yeah, exactly. But also at the same time, utilizing YouTube for me has been a huge benefit in terms of my training and in terms of my nutrition as well. Ruben and I have both studied training and nutrition for many years, and a lot of my knowledge has come from YouTube basically. And can we say that websites are sort of like social media?
Yeah, it's anything that's social and is media. So like the way I see it is we have developed new ways to connect with each other, whereas previously, before the telephone and all those things, you had to send a letter across the ocean to get to somebody in a different country. And that would take a long time, and it's there's slow feedback mechanisms, etc. And we've just increased that exponentially over time. Whereas now, like as a society, if you're online, you are interconnected with everybody else. Hey, Fajan de Dubois. Nice, I like it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, we're going into interconnectedness.
I just saw it.
Hey,
interconnectedness.
Yeah. You can finish what you're saying there.
No, I just saw that I had a cigarette over here, so I decided to spark it up. I'm really getting into this conversation. I feel we're just getting warmed up, and like I'm really passionate about this conversation. Right. So sorry, go ahead and keep.
So we have just become exponentially more interconnected, and what that does is it allows for many positives, but it can also allow for many negatives in a way. And so again, with all of these things, I think nothing is inherently good or bad. It is what we make of it. And so I'm sure that there are use cases for social media that will end up being bad or harmful or not as useful. But there will also be ones that are. And so again, I've tried to take that approach to it, and I've tried to use it to extract value and enhance my life. That hasn't always been the case. I did go through the phase where it wasn't as additive, but I tried to learn from that. I tried to turn that negative into a positive. And so, yeah, for me, I use it as a tool to learn and explore. I think it's fantastic. It's a great way to connect with people. But there are many traps. There are many Moloch traps that you can fall into. And the trick is like learning not to fall into those traps and trying to play a more Metatron game and thinking like, long-term games. Valley crossing. That's the Metatron approach, right? That valley crossing. It might not seem, fruitful immediately to start learning something about nutrition or training or any of those different things. But over time, if you keep pursuing, you'll eventually start to get it, and you'll be able to action and implement those things in your life to hopefully benefit. But yeah, I just want to talk about the interconnectedness. I read an interesting blog post the other day. We can put it in the show notes. And it was autism and dimensionality. Give me 1 second. Did I send it to you? Did I send you that about the autism?
Yes, you sent me something about autism, and I didn't get to it because I was thinking we could do a podcast on autism.
All right, we will.
Because I love autism. I think it's so fascinating.
Yeah, so we will do it, and I'll link this blog post in the show notes. So what it is it says autism as a disorder of dimensionality. Now, what does that kind of mean? Well, what they pose in the blog post is that the more interconnected your frontal lobe or regions in your brain are, it essentially, in graph theory, the more interconnected it is, the higher the dimensionality is of that graph. And so what they're sort of saying is that people that have autism have on average about a 60% more interconnected regions in the brain. So the brain is more densely connected. And what that essentially results in graph theoretically is a higher dimensional space. Okay. Now, if you think about what we're doing with social media and how we've all become so much more interconnected, right? Like we can essentially, like you mentioned on Twitter, you can go on Twitter and read what the president's tweeting, or you can comment on something that Elon Musk is doing, or, all these different people that you would otherwise be quite disconnected from, you can now be very connected to. Like, are we becoming more autistic as a society? And I think that there's arguments to be made that yes, we maybe are. And that it can be one of the downsides of becoming very interconnected. But again, I don't think that just becoming more and more interconnected or becoming higher and higher dimensional is inherently a bad thing. I think it is what we make of it. So yeah, anyway, you can riff off any of that if you like.
I just wanted to finish my answer, and maybe I sort of did, but in terms of, because Learn to Grow asked us in terms of how it has affected our gym life and nutrition. Okay, yeah, I did sort of say that. Yeah. There was a second part to that question. I thought the part about how the abuse shows on things that we can't unsee. So there's actually lots of videos, fucked up videos, that I wish I had never seen. When we were younger, do you remember the, what was it? This was before the 2 Girls 1 Cup videos came out as well. But that video didn't fuck me up too much, but there was this other one. All right, I'll explain it to you, and I think you'll know what it is.
If you're going to say something about centipede.
The video starts.
Is this about a centipede?
No.
Okay, good.
I haven't seen the centipede one.
Don't.
I don't. No, dude. Just the tone of your voice and how you said it. I don't want to see it because I know if it's coming from you, it's going to be like next level fucked up. So the one I'm talking about, you just see the dick, this guy's dick, right? And it's like tied to something, and he has it pulled up like this, and then he just starts cutting his dick off.
Oh,
And when I was a kid, I saw that, and it fucked me up. I was shocked, and that's a video that I wish I never seen. And I don't remember the name of it. It was you would get it by email. I think that was the way it was being moved around, because this is really before Facebook and shit. So I can't remember how I found it. But you had to find the video some way. And Faces of Death. That's what it was called. Have you heard of it?
No.
Faces of Death?
No, I
try to avoid video.
I try to avoid all of those spaces.
Dude, it was fucked up. And I can still see it in my head. And I think I was like, I don't know, 12 or 13 when I saw that one. And called Faces of Death. The guy just cut off his dick, and apparently he committed suicide after that.
Jesus.
So I think I don't really understand. And I always thought about this over the years. Okay, if that's true, if the guy actually did cut off his dick and then committed suicide, who the fuck's posting that video and sharing that video? Because there's no way he cuts his dick off and then has the time to upload and share the video before killing himself. I'm pretty sure if he was planning on killing himself already, he just thought, let's make this video, cut my dick off, and I'm killing myself right away. So there must have been someone who was there to upload the video, right?
Yeah, maybe.
What do you think?
Maybe.
I don't know. I always thought about that. Like, so some fucking sick motherfuckers.
I struggle to put myself in a similar reference frame to somebody who would cut their penis off. I can't say I've ever thought about it, contemplated it, or wanted to do it. So I can't comment because there's no way I can put myself in that reference frame.
I always try to. I love trying to put myself in that headspace. Like, what the fuck was this person thinking? What was going on in their lives to get them to do this? Because if they wanted to do it for the attention, they're not going to get it because they killed themselves. So maybe that was just a rumor. Maybe he didn't commit suicide, and he was thinking about transitioning. He was one of the first. He's the one that sort of sparked that transition culture,
but
cutting your dick off.
Potentially. Now, you bring up a good point, right? I have seen some messed up videos online. Do I wish I could unsee them? At one point, I probably would have said yes, but now I say no. I don't wish I could unsee those things because, again, they exposed me to an aspect of life that is clearly real, but I don't want to be true for me. And so what I've been able to do since then, or what I've tried to do since then, is largely avoid those kinds of things. Like I've got mates, people over the years who get into like that kind of, people crashing into stuff, or like, gym fail stuff, where people like fuck up in the gym. And, they try and share it. And like, as soon as I read the title or whatever, I just don't click on the link. Now, I'll explain why. And this, I also do this with certain types of, like content and movies as well. So horror movies, like I just don't watch horror movies. I watched a couple when I was a kid. And I was like, yeah, I don't fucking want this in my life. I don't want this in my possibility space. I don't even want to have this in my mind, right? And so it's the same principle with all this different, like this content, this fucked up shit. I'll tell you the video that really had a big impact on me was Gaddafi was the leader of, oh my God, I'm going to butcher this. I want to say like Syria. My God, Libya, that's the one. Libya. He was going to bring in like a gold-backed currency and like unify a whole bunch of countries. And like he was, had a bunch of programs in place. And then there was a whole campaign from the US, specifically the Clintons, trying to like discredit him and say that he is like this really bad person, et cetera. I'm sure there's both sides to the story, right? Anyway, they ended up essentially wanting to assassinate him because he was, he was standing up for his people and trying to do something pretty impactful. And they don't necessarily want that. So Hillary, I think is the one that was behind it. She was quite happy when he died. Essentially organized or, funded him being assassinated and killed. So they blew up his house and killed one of his children or two of his children in the house, young kids, which was really hard. He was still alive. and they did many attempts on his life, and they finally got him. But the thing that got me with this is that they filmed it. They filmed hunting him down, they filmed catching him, and they filmed essentially torturing and then executing him on camera. So you could see this. And that was that was tough for me to watch and experience, because in my life that wasn't necessarily super sheltered, like I'd been exposed to hardships as well in reality, but like this was a whole nother level of hardship, like this was like next level shit. And to me, I was like, holy fuck, like what? This is part of life, like this is a reality, like this just happened, therefore it is real, like it is a part of reality. And that really like forced me to have to think about a bunch of tough stuff that I don't think I would have thought about unless I'd saw that or had been confronted with it in some other way, shape, or form. And so I'm thankful for it in that regard. Doesn't change that it was difficult to see and watch and to realize it's real in life. But like, yeah, there's a bunch of those. But I also think that you can't get caught just looking at that stuff. Like, yes, it happens, and yes, it's happening all the time. But because the world is so big and there's so many people, there's almost an endless amount of that hardship and struggle and horribleness that you can consume. But there's also, on the flip side of that, a whole bunch of positive stuff and uplifting things and amazing things and happy things and beautiful things that you can consume and absorb as well. And I think it really is what we choose to focus on. Right. And it is where we choose to allocate our attention. And so if we all choose to focus on more of those uplifting, positive sum games and, beautiful gestures and all that different stuff, then the world becomes more like that. Right. And it's not about becoming all like that. There's always going to be a balance between the two. But I've just chosen to focus more on the what I deem to be the upside.
I think your algorithm is a really good indication of that, because information is really, really interesting. We can be bombarded with a lot of wrong information, right? Like, because we see that being the case these days, but it was always the case. I just think we're aware of it now because of the ability that we have to share information. So when we see something on the news, like I think we automatically already think that there's something bullshit about it, but that's only because we have the ability to share information about why what the news is doing is bullshit, right? We have people all over different social media platforms indicating why, and there's been proof that's come out, and we're aware that specific enterprises will donate to these media companies. Like I believe in Canada, the left owns 80% of the media, or they spent the 80% of the media's money came from the left, something along those lines. And that's the case, I think, in the United States as well. I don't know the percentage, but I know that I hear like there's a lot of talk about that online, right? And I can only be aware of that because of social media. So it's really interesting because there's also this big divide, right, with information, because like the algorithm again, right? Like if I keep looking at this one issue, then I'll keep getting more information about that issue. And if I'm getting the wrong information, I just become not even aware of it because I've dived so deep into this one specific area, and then just everything that I look at is basically about that. So I get consumed in it completely. So it's also really scary at the same time. But I think the benefit outweighs the negative if we talk about that specifically, because it's really good that the government has become and the media have become more exposed, so things can start to change for the better. And there's been examples of that as well, where people have begun to take some stances on things, and it makes me so happy to see those recent examples. Like there's been I don't want to say anything specifically because just don't want to get into that right now, but it's been like a few good steps in the right direction.
You fucking pussy. You're a pussy guy.
What's that?
You're pussy. Why would you say?
Yo, it's because I'm high and I was stuck on this one thought, and
All
I
right,
just
let's go,
wanted to
guy.
try and finish what I was saying before getting into so I don't go on too many tangents. But yo, we can talk about specifics. So I'm
No,
not such a fucking
finish your
pussy.
point.
You're right,
Sorry, I
guy.
just wanted to say that.
No, I don't. Fuck, I don't even remember now.
No, you do, guy. Come on.
No, what I so um
The algorithm, what it shows
right.
you, what you pay attention to, it keeps feeding you.
Yeah, so I think that we are headed sort of. We found a way to start heading in the right direction. I just hope it continues going that way. And yo, by the way, those recent examples, I'm like starting to forget which ones I've seen recently. But there's been a few things that have happened that have shown me that we are sort of headed in the right direction. It might have been some stances that here it is. I remember now. Um, there's been this recent push by the LGBTQ into the school systems, right? And they have this sort of getting students to start learning about topics that they shouldn't necessarily be exposed to at that age, purely just maturity. You know what I mean? There's certain things that we should try and keep children innocent from. They shouldn't have to learn about some of these topics that have been being presented, and people have started standing up. So I just need to drink water one sec.
Old cottonmouth.
And yeah, guy, fuck. So that made me really happy, right? Because people are starting to stand up because just recently people were really afraid to, and they started getting canceled. But as soon as the cancel culture started sort of diminishing, I think people are, all right, here's like a chance to start standing up again against things, because we were scared for a while at first, but I think people are sort of actually also it's because it's just gone too far. That's what it is. It's just that's what it is. It's just it hasn't gone to this point, because indoctrinating children is obviously horrendous, and anyone who's sort of behind that deserves jail time. That's it. No, straight up. That should be illegal to do, to indoctrinate children. It's without, especially if it's without the parents' consent. But no, sorry, even parents consenting to that, that's bullshit. That's crazy too. So yeah, I mean, if you're consenting to that as a parent, like that's fucked up. So I saw this video Matt Walsh had. He was looking at TikToks, and there was this woman, and she was showing her baby, and it was this male white baby, and she was saying how I'm going to teach him things, so when he grows up, he's not. She goes like this. So he's not so awful. Like
The poor fucking baby.
to a baby.
Just an awful baby.
And you see the baby. So what she's doing is she thought that she would get a whole bunch of books, right? Discussing about certain topics that she would read to the baby to sort of try and, teach him her fucked up logic. And one of the books was, about, what was it? But it had to do with the LGBT, push on things. So that was like sort of one of them that he can do both like girl things and boy things. I think that's what the story was about. And it had pictures of like boys doing girls things and girls doing boys things, like, the traditional things. And it was just hilarious. Like how, sorry, I forgot. And another book that she had was essentially about rape, right?
Oh shit.
And or sexual abuse, because she was concerned that because it's a white male that it's going to be sexually abusive to women. So that was sort of her thought process. So she wanted to teach it like not to be sexually abusive, and that it's okay to be a boy or a girl as well. So it's just like really interesting that first of all, someone's making these books, but then parents are feeling sort of pressured from this movement to sort of do things. And again, like that's like the information that's interesting, because there's so much of it out there that this lady thinks that it's right and what she's doing is right. She thinks that she's helping her baby, but it's completely ridiculous. What she's doing is sort of like teaching the baby, yeah, like you are a predator, like you, like you are going to be raping somebody. So it's something just so specific to be trying to teach a kid, right? Like
It's
what we
guilty
should be
until
doing
proven innocent.
is,
That's the baby's
yeah,
guilty until proven innocent. So say, yo, it's a baby. Relax.
yeah, exactly. So we should be trying to instill good values into people. And with those good values comes good judgment and good character.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's the last thing I want to say about that.
Yes. So I tend to agree, but I like, again, I always come back to this useful versus not as useful framing. And, teaching the kids about different, like, boys can do girl stuff, girls can do boy stuff. I have no problem with that, because I think that's broadly true. It's like, you can, if that's what you want to do, you can. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Where I sort of draw the line is with the strange sexual stuff, with the teaching of, kids about fisting and weird shit that they've been doing in primary schools, with this whole movement. I don't see the usefulness in that. If somebody is genuinely interested in those things, they will find that information. That doesn't need to be taught broadly to children. I don't see the usefulness in doing that at all. So yeah, that's where I kind of draw the line. The drag show stuff, I also, I don't know. I grew up, like, part of my life, I grew up in King's Cross, in like Darlinghurst, around Oxford Street, like where there's a big LGBTQ plus XYZ community, right? That I was exposed to that. It wasn't in my school. What I would see in my school when I would go to school in the morning were the prostitutes and the junkies that had shot up overnight, or had a client that they'd slept with and fallen asleep in our school. And they're the sorts of people I would see in the morning. And that was a really good signal for me, like, of what not to do. Like, hey, I don't want to end up like that, so I'm not going to go that path. But the drag queen stuff, like, I don't really have a problem with the drag show thing. I have a problem with the pushing of it, and the fact that they seem to be doing it to validate themselves, not really teach the kids. Like, if you go to these drag shows, it's all about the drag queens. It's not really about the kids. I think that's something that needs to be looked at. But to get back onto this whole thing, I think we can pivot this into trust, right? And so I think that as humans, we are actually incredibly trusting by default. And maybe more so now. And I think that could potentially actually be a negative in some way, shape, or form. I think we need to become a little bit less trusting. Like, you mentioned about the news and television. Like, I haven't watched television for 15 years. I haven't owned a television that has been used to watch TV for 15 years. I don't know, became aware or decided in my own mind that, like, this isn't helping. This is not a useful or productive way to spend my time. Like, I'm not extracting value from this. This is not enhancing my life. This is negatively impacting my life. And so, yeah, I haven't watched it for 15 years. And so what I've decided to do instead is to curate the content that I consume. I've decided to take some responsibility. I decided not to trust the incumbent power structures, the media, so to speak, to pick what's good for me, or to show me what I should be consuming, or tell me what I should be consuming, or how I should be thinking about things. So I became less trusting of that, which then opened up the space for me to start to learn how to curate my own. Now, I didn't magically land on the best strategy to start with. I had to make my own mistakes and go down certain, unfruitful paths and make wrong turns and end up at dead ends and realize that this is a place I didn't want to go to. But they were all my mistakes to make. And in doing so, I think I've come up with a strategy that I'm at least happy with, that has helped me to grow and develop as a person. So yeah, I think we need to be a little bit less trusting. And I think that has happened to a degree. And I think typically that would be talked about as like a bad thing. And even for myself, like at a period of time, I would have been like, oh, that's a bad thing. We should be more trusting. We should be more trusting of each other. But I've actually, in my age and my life experience, I've come to think that being less trusting to a degree, at least off the bat, is actually quite an advantageous thing. So what do I kind of mean by that? Well, don't just trust that what they're telling you on the media because they're this big business platform that everybody else listens to, that it's going to be correct. Like, you have to understand that there's vested interests. They have a motivation. They have, there's a reason why so much of the news and the media is all negative. And it's because that's what hooks people into watching it. They're hijacking your limbic system. You know, if you do a ratio of positive to negative stories on the news, you're going to realize that it's heavily skewed towards the negative, because that's what gets people tuned in. And that's their business. That's how they make money, is by getting people to tune in. So the reward system it's Moloch within itself, right? And so you're the idiot if you play that game. They're just doing what makes them money. So like, they're being sensible in some regard. You're the idiot for not realizing that that's what's happening. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we can get into the trust thing, but does that make sense or resonate with you?
Absolutely. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about how good of a feeling it is when you can trust somebody.
Oh, it's
That
beautiful.
is such exactly, bro. Like, imagine we did have more trust, right? And not because we just feel that way, but actually people acted in a way that was more trust worthy. If that was sort of
like real
more
trust.
so than it is currently. Yeah. Yeah. Because I was thinking back when you're a kid, dude, and you're with your parents and your parents are making decisions and you're just like trusting them. It is such a beautiful feeling. Just like that pure trust. Like, whether or not your parents are making the right or wrong decisions, because you're their kid, you just have like this, not in every circumstance, but I guess I could just speak for myself. I remember personally just wow, like, I just feel so good being able to know that I'm going to be taken care of, right? And that they're making the right decisions for me. Like, it just felt amazing. So
Can we just
obviously,
dig into that for 1 second? So you just said it felt so good because you knew that they were going to look after you. They had your best interest at heart, and they were going to make that decision for you. Why do you think it felt so good?
fuck, good question, right? I guess it's a sense of this security, the sense of health, the sense of future, the sense of calmness. Like, these people, like, as a kid, you're being told all of these things about when you grow up this and when you grow up that. So you sort of believe that your bright future, which your parents are talking about, is guaranteed in a way. I think that them taking care of you and doing all these things is making you feel so secure that you're able to sort of think about those things. And I think it just gives you, a sense of like a bright future.
So with that, do you think that part of the good feeling is the fact that it's also an efficiency thing? Like, because your parents are making those decisions and you trust them wholeheartedly, that good feeling is part of the fact that, like, they're solving a problem for you that you don't really know how to solve. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Like, it's an
Yeah,
efficiency thing?
that's definitely part of it. Yeah, it's a great point. That's definitely part of it. There's a lot of things that go into it. Also, the innocence that you have as a kid sort of allows you to be able to have that level of trust with somebody. But as soon as you start growing up and you start learning that, some of the things your parents, when you become aware that maybe some of the decisions your parents have made were not very good decisions, or they begin to do wrong things, and you understand why they're wrong, and you understand, because it's happening sort of in front of you, and you realize that your parents are like any other human being, that they have their their personal issues as well, their emotional battles and their difficulties in life, and you realize that they're not like this superhuman that you once thought they were. They, just human being like everybody else. So I sort of gets you to understand that people aren't perfect, and you have to be sort of weary of certain things, and you look certain personality traits, or you just get to know someone, you see how they carry themselves, and there's certain things that you see that looks like there are chinks in the person's armor, and you sort of start to begin to understand that you can't feel that way, or kind of sort of have that same level of just pure faithful trust in somebody. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
there?
I do. I'm just trying to, it made me think when you were talking about all that and like how good it feels, because it does, you're right. But part of that goodness, I don't know if it's like a self-deception at the same time, like, because you're sort of like, as the kid, you're a bit ignorant to certain things. And then you know, by trusting, you sort of deceive yourself in a sense to be like, this is the right decision. This is going to work really well, kind of thing. But I thought it was interesting that like a lot of that good feeling from trust comes from like the fact that it's like that. We talked about that entropy explosion and entropy collapse. And entropy explosion is like negative affect, and then entropy collapse is like positive affect, right? Like it's the good feelings. And there's something to be said about that trust. It's like with entropy, it's what trust sort of is it's prolonging entropy collapse. Like it's that, oh, this is going to work out. This is going to, you know, like you can have confidence, so to speak, or you trust that it will end up that way. And that's why it feels good. And then if it doesn't, that's when you get a big entropy explosion, and that's when you get that negative feeling. But that's the crazy thing about trust too, is that it's very asymmetric. It takes a long time to build, in a sense, and it only takes one thing to destroy it. Trust is an amazing efficiency. Like, so things can be done so much quicker and more efficiently with trust, right? But that also creates the space for exploitation and for people to take advantage of that trust. And so there is this strange balance between those two things where developing trust is incredibly powerful, but it's at the same time incredibly dangerous, because once you have that trust with someone, you're creating the space for them to take advantage of that. And you're putting yourself in a very precarious situation. So it's an incredibly interesting sort of balance and asymmetry that exists there with trust. Do you ever think about shit like that?
Yeah, 100%, guy. But while you're saying that, I was thinking about people who trust the news, right? Or trust a lot of different types of information that they should be a little bit more weary of. And I think that it just feels good to sort of trust something or some sort of cause, because it gives you that sense of security, or I guess maybe just inclusion, that something maybe similar that you would have felt as a kid with your parents, right? In certain circumstances. So maybe a lot of people in those sort of circumstances do continue looking for that sort of thing, right? And I had a friend, because I was talking to a friend about this. You know him. I won't say what his name is though. I was talking to him about that I don't trust like either side, like the left or the right, or any other political party for that matter. And he says, well, don't you think you should, trust one of them? And the way he said it, I understood what he was saying. It's just like, it's easier to just to choose one and go with that one. It just feels good doing so, right? And I thought that was really interesting when I kind of understood what he was saying. And in a lot of ways, he's right. If you want to have that false sense of those emotions,
That's exactly right.
But
false,
right? But but humans were amazing at compartmentalizing. Yeah, so we do have the ability to construct these sort of bubbles, but there will be a day where you're gonna be like, "Yo, I've been kind of full of shit this whole time."
Yeah.
but I understand it. I understand it. So, where was I going with that?
Trust left and right.
Yeah.
You got to pick one.
No, I think that was
it.
About trust. Fuck, guy. Fuck. So that's why I think people do sort of trust, certain things to get that feeling. But however, is is it actually trust? If you decide I'm going to go with the left or the right, you consciously make that decision because it just feels good to do so. Are you actually trusting what they're saying, or are you just choosing a side because it feels better to be a part of something than nothing?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. A big part of it for me, the way I sort of think about these things now is the less you trust yourself, like deep down within yourself, the more likely you are to sort of adopt the beliefs and or trust one of those groups, right? And you do have to trust something, right? You have to trust something, and a lot of the time, I think what happens is people sort of default to, well, what's everyone else trusting? Or what are people that like I get along with or live like me or look like me or whatever? What do they trust? And then it just sort of becomes that. But the craziest thing about becoming or adopting group beliefs, like, left versus right, capitalists versus, libertarians versus socialists versus communists versus all those different things, right? Is that in order to become part of the group, you have to give up part of yourself to the group and adopt the group's belief structures to a degree. Okay. Now, what that's sort of telling you is that the way I see it, people that like, I've never considered myself to be a big group thinker, if that makes sense. Like I've never wanted to have like massive groups of friends. I've always struggled with the concept, the idea of like, how do you even have that many friends? Like, is it like, if I want a friendship to be, deep and meaningful, how do you have many deep and meaningful relationships? Like there isn't enough time in a day or in a lifetime to do that. But with the group stuff, yeah, you have to give up part of yourself to the group and absorb or assimilate their beliefs and or belief structures. Okay. And what they hold to be true. You have to conform to that, right? And so what that sort of says to me is that it's lots of people who don't really trust themselves, maybe. And they are just using that sort of the numbers game or the similarity game to then default to having those beliefs, right? To absorb, like to assimilating into those groups because like, well, they're all doing it. Surely they can't be wrong. Or it's like strength in numbers or safety in numbers. Think about it like fish flocking together, like they birds that flock together as well, like this happens across many different systems. Things aggregate together for efficiency and safety and, all of those different reasons. I think the same thing happens with humans in beliefs. We do the same thing. I don't really want to be one of them little fishes. I would prefer to be a shark, or you know what I mean? Like I'm willing to be wrong. I'm willing to have it all blow up in my face. But the upside of taking that risk is the fact that I can define my own. And so that's what I prefer to do. And learning how to trust within yourself. And the only way you can do that is by being willing to be wrong, to have a wrong opinion, to be proved wrong, to have it thrown back in your face. And that takes a little bit of courage. And I think that if you can muster up that courage, be willing to be wrong about things, stick to your guns, understand your reasoning, you start to develop more trust within yourself. And then you can start to define these other beliefs or more useful models and all this other stuff. And then as you live and embody those, other people can see and choose maybe they might like those or challenge you on those. And then through that challenge, you can make your models, your beliefs, what you trust in to become more robust, right? And it can build over time. And I think this is how we progress as a society in terms of those beliefs. But it takes people to be willing to like put their crazy shit out there and be willing to be wrong. Now, I think there's no shortage of people putting their shit out there. I do think there's a shortage of people who aren't willing to be wrong about it.
That's funny. I agree. Having these deep, meaningful relationships with people is much more fulfilling for sure than having lots of friends. And like, again, it just like, for example, like with you, Rubes, like I trust you and that feels good that I trust you, and then I can trust you. You know what I mean? I can trust you about like asking you for advice about things or talking to you about certain situations that might be going on in my life. And I just know that you will try your best to sort of help me out in those situations and sort of bring to light things that or perspectives that I maybe haven't considered, or sort of give me an opportunity to sort of expand on it. And that's really beautiful to have. So I really appreciate you for that.
Thanks,
dude.
Guy.
I love you for that. So thank you.
And likewise.
Yeah.
But okay, so
Thank you.
with that, right? How much of that nice feeling and appreciation do you think comes down to the fact that that's just so incredibly efficient when you can really trust? And like, it's not that you can trust that you like that everything I say is going to be useful. No, you can trust that I will be consistent. I'll tell you how I see it, right? I'm not going to like lie to you about certain things to try and make you feel better or anything. Like, you can sort of trust that I'll be honest based off my perception, my perception. So I'll be consistent with that, if that makes sense. And it's not that like every bit of advice I'm going to give is great or anything else. It's no, you can trust that I'm going to be honest from my perspective. But how much of that nice feeling comes down to the efficiency and the fact that you don't then have to like worry about all these other things? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's sort of something I think people should consider when they're deciding on some of their behaviors or decisions. Because if you are intentionally wronging somebody, that feels mad shitty. That's going to feel mad shitty. And you're going to make that person feel mad shitty too. And once you understand like how beautiful it is to trust someone, then maybe you can start to begin to sort of analyze yourself and then try and sort of understand that some of the things that you're doing might be affecting other people. And that could be a way where you begin to sort of teach yourself that you should be a better person, so you can sort of gain trust from other people and begin to obtain that feeling and that sense of more security with some of the people around you. But I think one huge limitation people have is their patience with others. Sometimes you hear a lot of stories about families having issues, right, that can't be resolved. And to me, there's not a single issue that can't be resolved with sufficient dialogue and open-heartedness and trust.
Yeah, open and honest discourse. Yeah, no, I agree. It's an interesting. Okay, so what you were just saying made me think. I made a statement before saying we need to be less trusting, and I think that actually that was a bit of a narrow thing. I should have been more specific. We need to be less trusting broadly in terms of like, who we allocate our attention to, or where we get our information and all those kinds of things. We need to be less trusting with that. We need to try to think about what are the incentives for people to be doing this? What are the incentives for this news agency to publish? And how do they get attention? How do they make money, etc.? But I think we need to be more trusting within ourselves. And I don't think that's just like, oh, you need to be more trusting in yourself. I think you have to build that trust within yourself. And what you said really hit it home. So you were saying, if you screw someone over, or you say you're going to do something, then you don't, or you mislead someone or take advantage of somebody or whatever, you really do know. Evil sticks, so to speak. And I think that actually undermines a lot of people's trust within themselves, because they know all the shit that they've done that they're not happy about or not proud about, or that they could have done differently or could have helped instead of hindering, or any number of different things, right? We know. We are with us. It is our life. We know our track record, so to speak. And so I think that if we started to build more trust within ourselves, right, we would indirectly be a bit less trusting to those other institutions that we shouldn't trust. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny because when you mentioned at the beginning that we should be less trusting, I knew exactly what you meant. And I knew that you were, I guess it's because I know you, that you were sort of applying it to those institutions more so. But one thing I think that we both realized during this pod is that um, there's two types of trust or sorry, trust has a lot of, I don't want to just narrow it down to two, but trust has many different facets, right? You should try and sort of use it and all to for for relationships and business relationships, friendships, family, and also utilize it to protect ourselves as well. So we use it to sort of build us, and also we use it to protect ourselves at the same time. So it's interesting how, yeah, there's probably more than those two facets too if we thought about it some more actually.
Well, yeah, we probably should. We should probably dedicate an entire, based off what we've discussed here, to dig down on these things a little bit more. I think that's a good idea. So one thing that, based off what you just said, is trust. Developing trust within yourself builds you up, right? It gives you a confidence within yourself. Well, it will change the way you see and interact with the world. And I think that's a very positive thing. Whereas externally trusting things without that internal trust is very dangerous and allows for control of people by those other structures, that I think can be broadly dangerous. Another thing that I think about trust that I think is interesting is trusting in power structures can be very beneficial, but at the same time, very dangerous. And I think an important thing for people individually to think about, like, what are the goals or incentives of that power structure? So, when people trust the science or trust the government, you have to understand, what are their incentives for them? What is their most important thing? Is it the people, or is it that they maintain control? And so I think that there are two questions that we can ask in a lot of circumstances that would help us to navigate circumstances that have been happening recently, and that will continue to happen in the future.
Yo, do you have to go, guy?
I
Don't you
I
have to go
I
to?
will. We'll wrap it up. But I'd like to thank.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's all good. I'd like to thank Learn to Grow. That was a very good question. I don't know if we sufficiently answered your question, but to summarize, hopefully I can do a good job of the summary for myself. How has social media and the oversharing and the interconnectedness and the fact that we can see everybody's lives daily changed my life? And I think that largely it's changed my life for the better. But I don't think that's the default, right? I think that it might be maybe it's the exception, maybe it's the norm for a lot of people. I don't know, because I don't engage with that much of it. I specifically curate. There is just so much information in the world. And this happens with our senses too. Like, if we were to try and process all of the information that our senses received, right, we would never come to any conclusion, because we would just be busy processing all that information. Part of our perceptual apparatus, or our perception, is that we spend a lot of we part of our perceptual apparatus and our perception is ignoring large amounts of information, right? So essentially that's saying there's a lot of noise and we just try and find the signal. And so for me, I see the social media and the sharing and all this sort of stuff there's a lot of noise out there, and I'm looking for the signal. And I think that I've been able to, well, for myself specifically, I've been able to latch on to some good signal, and I'm pursuing that signal. So for me, it's been a very positive experience. And for you, Guy, if you want to summarize.
Fuck, that was beautiful, guy.
Thanks.
Yeah, learn to grow. Thank you for your activity on our YouTube channel, for the questions, for the comments. Yeah, it's cool. That's cool to see that. Thank you. For me, this has kind of been a theme of our podcast. I feel like intending to sort of use things for, and not for good, for, useful, making things useful. And I've always attempted to do that. And even though it hasn't always been the case, I feel like I'm like getting closer to that point, more so now in the last few years than I ever have. So I've been recently, attempting to use just use things for good. Like I've actually given up a few things recently. Like I don't watch porn anymore. I jerk off less just because these are just things that I've sort of looked into and became to understand that they could be affecting me in a negative way. So I'm still always making adjustments, and I wouldn't have been able to make those adjustments without social media. So although social media has all these negatives, it has basically gotten me one step closer to enlightenment, which me and Ruben are trying to achieve eventually.
Correct.
And yeah, so I think that's going to be my answer. That I've utilized it for good, has been benefiting me, and with it, I will achieve enlightenment one day.
Fuck yeah, guy! I love that. And shout out to your neighbors and the wicked tunes that they're pumping, because that shit is dope.
You get tired of it after a while. I will be honest. The not the music per se, because like I used to party and put on music all the time as well. So I have to put up with it now. It is what it is. But like the music in Latin America, it's not my shit.
Guy,
like some of it's good.
You don't just dance everywhere.
What? I used to think I was a good dancer until I got here.
This doesn't. Yeah.
But it's like automatic.
What were your dance moves, guy? Just quickly.
Oh,
like back in the day, your go-to.
This is so long. Well, we used to do the fist bump. That was like the big move back in the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I always loved like dancing wacky, try to do funny shit to make people laugh. That was always my thing. You take a couple of mollies and you go to a festival, and dude, I'll dance for like 12 fucking hours straight. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah.
I just haven't been to a show for such a long time. Dude, the last time I've been to a show and did Molly, I think it was like 4 years ago. And I would love to go back and do some more.
Guy, why don't you just pop a Molly and listen to your neighbors?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Maybe a different vibe. All right, that was a wicked pod. Thank you very much. Have a lovely... Oh, wait. Yeah. Don't subscribe, don't like, don't comment on the videos. Definitely don't share it. And anything else?
We love you guys, and I love you too, bro.
Yeah, love you too, guy. Peace, love, have fun. Right, bye-bye. Peace.